Okay, it's a tubular bind-off. I'm working in the round to finish off the ribbing of a hat. The ribbing is a knit one, purl one ribbing. This time what I'm going to do is begin with a couple of rounds of double knitting where I'm going to just purl the pearls and slip the knits and then go around knitting the knits and slipping the pearls so that I get two separate layers of fabric, and then I'll graft those two layers together. My first stitch of the round is a purl stitch. So I'm going to purl, and I'm using a different needle here because when you're double knitting, if you want the stitches to be about the same size as the stitches you're working from, you need to go down a needle size. So this double point is smaller than this circular. Anyway, so I purl. I'm going to slip this knit stitch, keeping the yarn to the back because I'm making a layer of fabric just on the back side, the inside of the hat, just with the purl stitches. Slip it as if to purl so that I do not twist it. It stays nice and open. I bring the yarn back to the front, purl. Take the yarn to the back, out of the way, to slip the knit stitch and not get the yarn choking it across the front. The yarn stayed out of the way in the back. Again, purl. I'm going to do this continuing around the whole round, slipping the knits, purling the pearls. Okay, so I've gone her all the way around, purl, slip. The last one. The circular needle is all done. Okay, I've been around once, but remember I only was working the purl stitches. So the inside is now a row taller than the outside. So we're going to fix that now. We're going to slip the pearls and work the knits. I'm going to move the yarn to the front when I slip that purl. So the yarn is staying between this back layer of pearls and this front layer that's knits. So I've slipped the yarn across the front. Take it back to the back to knit the knit stitch. Bring it to the front, slip the purl stitch as if to purl, don't twist it. Put the yarn to the back, knit, bring it to the front to slip the purl stitch. Knit, yarn to the front, slip, yarn to the back, knit, yarn to the front, slip. I'll do that all the way around. All the way around, here's the last, slip the purl, yarn to the back, knit the knit stitch. Okay, so now I've got two separate layers of fabric, and how you can see they're separate is I'm going to separate them. I'm going to use two needles. I'll slip the purl stitches onto the back needle, the knit stitches on the front. Don't need the working yarn for this. I'm just slipping pearls, knits, pearls, knits. And what I'm getting here is, here's where we were doing regular knitting, but these are the two layers from the rounds of double knitting we did. The purl stitches are back here, and again from the inside, they look like knit stitches, and they don't have any of the slipped yarn going across them. They're nice and clean, and these are the knit stitches on the front layer, and they're separated. We're going to graft them as if they were the toe of a sock, joining up the front and back layers. I'm going to keep slipping some more stitches here. Okay, so now I've got a needle's worth of stitches separated, the pearls back here, the knits up here, and I'm going to cut this working yarn short so I can do the grafting. Again, to estimate, I wrap it around the path that it'll be seaming. 1, 2, 3 times, and for good measure, 4 times around the tail. Then I unwrap it. So this should be enough yarn to graft. Now I'll thread this cut yarn into tapestry needle. Blunt tip so I don't split. Now, here are my old stitches that were knitting and purling and stuff. Here's my working yarn. So I'm going to start grafting here. I finished with a knit stitch, and I want to join that to a knit stitch. So the first thing I do is come up through the first knit stitch. Okay, now I'm going to go to the back. These are my layer of purl stitches. Keep the yarn under the needle tips. I'm going to go in toward the center and off, and then out in the next one. Pull the yarn through, not too tight. Okay, now bring the yarn to the front. I'm going to join this knit stitch to this one, in toward the center and off, and out toward the outside world. There we go. Now back to the purl side, in toward the center, and then out through the next one. Pull it back to the front, in toward the center, away from me in the knit stitch, and then out again in the next knit stitch. This is easier to see when they're on two separate needles. Okay, so we're starting to have the bind off, and the knits seem to come up and over the top. It's a very stretchy bind off, but it stays loose. Purls. There, stretchy. Okay. I've bound off a few. I'm coming to the end of the stitches that I have separated, so I'm going to get some more stitches onto the needles. Remember, it's always the purls go on the back needle, the knits on the front. This is a purl. So whenever I start running low on stitches, just go and pick up some more. And then you can get back to grafting. Show you the end here. The last stitches, purls in toward that no man's land between the layers, and then out again, in, off, out, in, off, and drop that needle. And I'm going to tuck this into here, if I can get it in. There, because that was the first stitch, so I've joined the last purl to the first purl, and the first knit off, and I'll join that in here, and actually I'll tuck that through the back, there, and then I'll tuck in that end, and it'll make a nice even ending between the ending and the beginning without a jog. Done with our tubular bind-off. And if you want, you can even run a string of elastic through between the layers in this bind-off. It's made a tube, that's why it's called tubular, and you can run an elastic in here between these stitches if you need extra stretch.